Is there a way to grow a back-to-Eden lawn?
Yeah. In the fall, when you stop mowing, cover with wood chips. About 2 inches, you know. And I like to, when I do mine, I screen it so I get the heavy pieces out, so it's a fine material, and just dump it out there and rake it in, you know, maybe an inch thick, and all winter long, the water's going through it, releasing compost tea and building that soil. And come next spring, it's amazing. The surface on top is very buoyant, not muddy. The grass grows right through it, and all summer long, because it's there, it's composting. Every time you water, you're just feeding it. It's just amazing how it works. It's incredible.
So when you're saying that you're doing that, and you're raking or you're taking away the bigger chunks of
What I do
With
is
the
I
screen.
screen. I
Oh,
get a half-inch screen, and so I screen it, and so the heavy stuff stays on the screen, the fine stuff goes through. Then I take that finer material and put it on the lawn. I just dump it and I take my rake and I rake it over the lawn so it's all kind of level, maybe about an inch thick. And then as in the winter, the grass isn't growing, so it just lays there and water going through it. Then in the spring, when the grass grows, it comes right through it, but all that's in place, and so it holds the moisture, releases compost tea, and you have the nicest, greenest lawn. It's so cool. I had a situation out here. He's seen it. My lawn out here is really wet. And when I started losing the ability to walk, I came in one year and I couldn't go very quick, and so my wheels were sinking in the mud and just was scalding the grass. So I had to hire a guy
From the lawnmower.
from the lawnmower. So I had to hire a guy for $100 to mow my grass. So I asked God, I said, God, I can't live like this. What do I do? He says, cover the wood chips. So I did. That fall, I went and I did the screening. I put this up, and the next April I'm coming through there, I was totally blown. I'm coming across this grass with water running in it. But because the wood chips were there and not mud, the wheels didn't sink into it because it wasn't mud. And the mower went right across that totally wet stuff, and I'm thinking like, awesome. And I'm getting that anything that grows, wood chips is the answer. Anything. Trees, grass, shrubs, you know, vegetables, everything. Wood chips works the best. It's the ultimate. It's not like you can't use it on something.
Like ice cream.
See all these pots in here? See all these flowers? And I say, look, those are all growing in wood chips. And all my potted plants, it's all wood chips. Because it's the best.
Have you ever heard of sand on the lawn?
Sand is, when you're doing a lawn, sand's the ultimate because it levels perfect. It makes it really level. The challenge with sand is it holds no water. So you got to water all the time.
Yeah.
The wood chips hold the water.
Yeah.
That's
How
why
about-
like, my pasture is completely level because wind blows it all nice and flat, but it's all sand. So now I put
Wood chips will
2
hold the
feet
water.
deep of wood chips in there to start building dirt back up.
Yeah, see, sand is really nice for growing things because it's very porous, full of air, and roots can really spread through it. The challenge is moisture, because it dries out so because there's nothing to hold water. Wood chips on top, that's the beauty. Whether you have clay ground or sand, the wood chips is the answer to
clay.
both. I love it, man. It's just, nature's perfect. It's covered all the bases. There's just no issues.
Now, the wood chips will also break up some of the clay, make
Well, what it does,
more-
it brings the life forces, worms, all this bacteria stuff that gets in there. It was so interesting. They did this film. Dr. McCullough had this guy in North Dakota, and he was showing roots. How you see as worms come in and they create these tunnels. The plant roots follow the tunnels because there's less resistance. And they're lined with worm casts, which is the most amazing fertilizer there is. So it's like, duh, well, of course. And so it's like nature's. So when you have worms in the ground, you're going to have amazing soil because they're creating all these air spaces, they're leaving their castings. It's like, it's the ultimate. And what's so cool
like a
about
freeway.
I get these calls from people who do the wood chips, and they all say this: man, we pull those wood chips to places full of worms. I says, yeah. You just created a healthy environment. They show up. They weren't there before, but now they're there because it's life. It's just so awesome, man, how it works.
Makes sense.
Speaking of lawns, how does Paul deal with grubs in his lawns?
If I see them, I give them my chickens. Otherwise, they're fine. They don't hurt anything.
Are there any problems with pruning apple or other fruit trees while they're in bloom? Will the healing process affect fruit production? I have elderly aunts and uncles with mature trees, yet I have a transportation problem and believe the only time I will be able to get there is when their trees are in bloom. I'm not talking about reducing the size of the trees, just removing suckers, centers, crossovers, pruning it open enough to throw a cat through.
No problem at all. Just be careful when you're doing it. You don't knock the blooms off the stuff you want to keep. That's the challenge. Is when you pull stuff through, you can break off stuff you want to keep. So just be gentle while you're doing it, careful, and you're good. No problem.
Paul talked about feeding his hens greens and grass cut from his yard, and he doesn't give them anything except their own shells. I also raise hens for eggs, 120 birds at one time, and did the same. They too were field grazers, and I never culled except for the roosters. The older girls were excellent brooders. I would manage to clutch and pick a brooder and tend to them each day during the cycle. I was very happy managing upcoming chicks, yet not happy about buying Kickstarter. I was eager for God to help me create the closed loop on our farm, but I was not confident mixing my own Kickstarter, so I bought it from an organic farm 30 miles away. It was expensive. Now our question. I would like to know if Paul is considering creating homegrown Kickstarter for a time when buying it is not an option.
Well, I would do what nature does. If you ever look at, ducks or chickens, they follow their mom out in nature and they do what she does. They're eating what's on the ground. And I would just feed them what I have. What else are you going to do? All you can do is what you have. And in nature, chickens and ducks aren't fed Kickstarter. They just live on greens. That's all there is.
You know what I noticed about when we walked in there? The chickens, usually when you walk in where there's chickens, they freak out. They're everywhere. They're just, These guys are just...
Or they're at the fence jumping, trying to get something from you.
Yeah.
And in both cases, they're malnutritioned. In chicken pens, they pick on one another. Because they're malnutrition. My chickens have total abundance of food. They have everything they want. They're not malnutrition, so they're content.
Yeah.
They're happy.
They're calm.
And good quality food.
Because
I was like, what?
They're fed well. They eat well. And if you look what's out there, it's all weeds, stuff, and grass clippings. That's all they get. I'm not feeding them grain. And their feathers are beautiful. They shine. They're healthy.
Yeah.
And if you look at a pheasant nature, let's say a pheasant nature, a male pheasant, no chicken looks that good. They're beautiful, bright, amazing colors. They're not getting grain. They're just eating grass. Again, it's so stupid how we live and the stuff we believe because nothing in nature validates it. It's crazy, man.
Soil dries out our hands. Are you experiencing as much of this with compost and wood chips? Doesn't appear Paul touches the soil as much for planting with his rake. What about weed pulling? I always manage to get my hands dirty pulling small weeds, but not as much if they get larger. If we do get dry hands, is there a solution growing nearby?
I so love that question because when I was rototilling and had dirt, my hands were always cracked. They were a mess and miserable. Look at my hands. This camera, I'm telling you, I'm pulling weeds constantly. I'm in that stuff. I'm digging with my hands. I'm in it. No cracks. Nothing's dry because it's not dirt. It's live, living material. Mm-hmm. It's not dirt.
I noticed it when I pulled.
Yeah, your hands aren't even dirty.
No.
No mud on them. I'm just telling you, it's a different medium, and this medium doesn't dry out hands. And you see, exposed dirt was never designed for me to be in. All of nature has a covering. And exposed dirt was never designed for my hands to be in. Yeah. And so all these issues we're having because something's out of whack. Unnatural. Nature's perfect. Nothing's wrong with it.